In Chapter 9 of Wuthering Heights, things spiral further out of control when Hindley, in a drunken state, threatens Mrs. Dean with a knife and then dangles his son Hareton over the stairs, claiming he will break the child's neck. When the poor child struggles, Hindley drops him. Heathcliff, who has just walked in, instinctively catches Hareton, but then regrets missing an opportunity for revenge against Hindley by doing so. Later, Cathy asks Mrs. Dean's advice about love, then confides in her that she's accepted Edgar Linton's marriage proposal. Mrs. Dean asks Cathy if she loves Edgar and why, unsatisfied with Cathy's answers. Cathy also describes a dream she had, wherein she traveled to heaven, but felt as though she didn't belong there. Her longing to return to Earth made the angry angels fling her out onto the heath on top of Wuthering Heights. Then they discuss Heathcliff. When Mrs. Dean lies and says he's in the stable, she knows full well he's eavesdropping on their conversation. Cathy admits that although Heathcliff's dirtiness and low social status are Hindley's fault, she feels that it would degrade her to marry Heathcliff. Heathcliff overhears this, and Mrs. Dean sees him sneaking out of the room. She tells Cathy to be quiet, that Joseph has arrived with Heathcliff. But then she cracks and admits Heathcliff may have heard their conversation. An upset Cathy confesses she really belongs with Heathcliff, not Edgar Linton. She passionately describes her feelings, saying she believes she and Heathcliff's souls are intertwined and that her love for him is eternal, while her love for Edgar will fade. No one can find Heathcliff. Later, a violent thunderstorm topples a tree and brings it crashing down onto the roof. Fearing Hindley is dead, Joseph, who's been praying, and Mrs. Dean run to check on him, shaking the handle of his door. Hindley is drunk, but still alive, and he shouts at them from his room. Cathy searches for Heathcliff outside in the rain until after midnight, but she can't find him. The next morning, wet and shivering, Cathy is wide awake in the sitting room, ill and worsening until she's overcome with delirium. After a doctor visits, Mrs. Dean and Joseph care for Cathy through weeks of illness. Old Mrs. Linton visits a few times, then takes Cathy to Thrushcross Grange to nurse her. But Mr. and Mrs. Linton catch Cathy's fever and die. Heathcliff does not return. The story skips ahead 3 years to when Cathy marries Edgar in the Gimmerton Chapel and demands Mrs. Dean leave baby Hareton and move to Thrushcross Grange. And Mrs. Dean obliges. When Heathcliff saves baby Hareton, it's heroic, but his regret at missing an opportunity for revenge continues his status as an anti-hero, which is a protagonist who actually lacks heroic qualities. Mrs. Dean's reliability is called into question here. We do not know why she pretends that Heathcliff isn't listening, but the fact that she lies about this suggests that she is willing to be dishonest, and also perhaps that she's trying to manipulate the situation.